Let's say the blue line on this glass is the amount of trust that someone has to have with you before they're ready to book a call or sign an engagement. And let's say that the water in this pitcher is like your content. All right, if you're only using social media, if you're only posting when you feel like it, it's like trying to fill this glass with an eyedropper. It's going to take forever, if it ever happens at all. But if you're creating the kind of content that builds trust, you're going to bring in those leads a whole lot faster and they're going to be ready to buy. So if you're out there chasing the trends, the two-line hooks or those AI generated drawings, the motivational quotes, all right, those are fine because they're going to get you found and they're going to get you liked, but they're not going to get you clients. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to move someone from I've seen your content to I trust you enough to spend serious money with you. I'm Laura Zovelson, and this is the GenXpert Show. I've spent more than 25 years building venture-backed companies and award-winning brands. I've taught and tested everything I talk about here in my university classes and accelerators, so I can help you fill your pipeline by becoming the go-to in your niche without spending weekends on your laptop. So let's get into this trust thing. Trust is the critical piece that's missing from most content strategies. And I don't think enough people are talking about this because trust is what gets you inbound leads, referrals, and clients. So here's the advice that I see most often out there, right? Post consistently, add value, be authentic, show up everywhere. And look, none of that is bad advice. And it might get you followers and it might get you some likes, but here's what it doesn't do. It is not going to get you the big fish clients that you want, not those long term commitments that let you spend less time prospecting and more time doing what you're really good at. So instead, you have to get your leads across the trust threshold, all right? And most experts are not doing what they need to do to get people over the line. Here's what I think you need to understand. Service buyers, B2B buyers, they don't move from I saw your post to I'm ready to hire her just because had some pithy comment, right? They need to get to know you, but they're not going to ask for a meeting, not at first. First, they're going to stalk you on Google and on ChatGPT. And then, if you have the right kind of content, if you show them your perspective, if what you talk about resonates with them, then they'll reach out. So the way I think about it is that most of us are creating our content for down here, right? In stop the scroll land. This is where you get that dopamine hit of likes and followers. So you're more likely to keep creating that kind of content. By the way, that's exactly what the platforms want. But the threshold itself, this critical conversion point, right? Once you get them over that, that's when they start to build real trust with you. And that's when they start to actually consider you as a possibility to hire. So, if you are focusing most of your content down here and your content isn't specifically built to move people across that threshold, you're not building trust. So then the question becomes what does it actually take psychologically to get prospects from down here to up here? And how can you create content that activates those neurons that spark those feelings of trust? Because once you understand that, then you know you're not wasting your time and you're actually creating content that has the potential to get you hired. So let's go a little bit deeper into what I actually think is going on here. I think when most people think about marketing, they're thinking about visibility or discovery. And so they lean naturally towards social media, right? Getting out there on a platform where people can find you. And the thing about social media content is people do not have to think very hard to consume it. In psychology, they actually call it peripheral processing. And by the way, this is what those platforms are built for. It's what the algorithm wants. It wants you to not get deeply engaged. It wants you to not do a lot of deep thinking. It wants you to just keep social media running in the background and just stay on the platform. But the thing is that that peripheral processing that keeps people below the trust threshold. The format itself, the platforms, actually work against the psychological mechanisms that build trust. So you could post every day for a year. People might say, oh, there's that person again posting, but you can still not build enough trust to get them over that line and get them ready to make that call or engage with you. So we need to stop thinking about marketing just as a visibility mechanism and think about using our content to build trust. Now, the challenge is those are completely different strategies and they require completely different kinds of content. So the research shows that people build trust with each other in four ways. The first is just sustained exposure, right? We tend to build positive feelings around things that are familiar. The second is deep cognitive processing. So when people have to get their heads around something, they actually use a different part of their brains than they do when they're just on social media scrolling. So the third one is people like to be affiliated with an expert. If you're working on a problem that you can't solve yourself, you want to believe that you're working with someone who knows more than you do to get that problem solved. That's just natural. And then finally, storytelling is actually an excellent trust builder because it triggers the emotions, and emotions help people make those trust connections in their minds. So, what we need to solve for here is what kinds of content and what formats of content actually trigger those four things to start making those trust feelings happen. And I did the research, and the clear winner is long format. Now, it can be written, or it can be video, or it can be audio. I would say with a blog or a newsletter, 1,500 to 3,000 words. With a video or a podcast, 10 to 30 minutes. And what are you supposed to do with that time? What kind of content is actually going to get those trust feelings happening? I think anything that goes deep, where you walk through your methodology, where you do a case study that shows the full journey, right? Not just the highlight reel, but the part that shows the messy middle, the challenges you ran into and how you overcame them, right? You can't do that very well with social media. You can share detailed guides that explain the why behind your frameworks, or you could do deep dives on relevant topics in your niche, right? And here's why that long content format, doing those kind of things I just described, is going to work. First of all, it's going to give people time to see you think, not just see that you're out there existing, right? It's going to trigger that central processing we were talking about, where people's brains actually have to engage and think about what you're saying. It's going to create the repeated, sustained exposure where they build that familiarity I mentioned. And also, long form is just referenceable, right? If you say something that has great content, people bookmark them, they share them, and they come back to them when they're making decisions. And that just creates a loop of them referring to you as an expert. Now, I know what your pushback here is. You're saying, Laura, I barely have time to do social media content. How am I supposed to create this? And here's my answer: you're not actually adding more work. You are redirecting your effort to the content that actually matters. So if you could create just one long form piece a month that actually moves someone across that trust threshold, that is going to be worth more to you than 30 tips that just keep them stuck on the awareness side. And here's how I think you can make this work for you: that one deep piece becomes the source for all your social media posts. So you're not choosing between strategies, you're just inverting the hierarchy, right? You create the deep content first, and then you pull your social short content out of it. And that's how you get consistency and depth that all relates back to what you do without having to hire a team. And by the way, if you want to hire a team, feel free. But my goal is just to show you here that there's a range of possibilities and that it actually is possible for you to create both kinds of content. So here's what I hope you take away today. I think the prevalent marketing advice has it backwards. Everyone is talking about show up daily because that's what works for influencers. But you're not an influencer, you're an expert. And the psychology here is clear. Trust does not come from being entertaining for 45 seconds. It comes from getting people to move from seeing you in the scroll and processing you with that peripheral part of their brain to actually thinking deeply about what you're saying. And we need their brains to make that shift. So I'll be honest, when I started thinking about my own content this way, it was actually kind of a relief because maybe I didn't have to spend as much time like optimizing for the algorithms. It gave me the freedom to start creating the kind of content that I was more comfortable with anyway, this deep kind, right? And it has the extra benefit of moving my potential clients over the trust threshold. So maybe instead of asking, what should I post today? The real question is, what can I create this month that will help my ideal clients shift their perspective or maybe see a challenge or an opportunity more clearly? So, if you're interested in shifting your content to the kind that builds more trust, and you don't have all day to spend on this, I invite you to download my go to content grid. It's a 3 by 4 of belief shifting topics and related AI prompts. And it's going to help you start to move beyond tips and tricks and start creating that kind of content that makes you stand out. And I'll go ahead and put the link to that in the description. Okay. So that's going to do it for me today. It is an absolutely stunning day here in California, and I am out to spend some time in the sunshine. I hope it is your favorite kind of day wherever you are, and that you get out there too. Thanks for spending time with me, and I'll see you next week.